Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my interview series. Now, today we've got a pretty special guest with us today. Now, I grew up with video games, and this guy worked on a lot of video games I played growing up. And, mate, Christopher Stone, how are you going today?
I'm doing all right, man. Thanks a lot, Dale, for making me feel super old by
Yeah.
saying you grew up with my video games.
Well, see,
No, I'm doing well, man.
see, I was a bit unlucky because I kind of missed a lot of the good games that were made, being born in '06. Not to make you feel any old at all. But I did get to experience some of the later Call of Duties, like I played Modern Warfare 3 with my brothers, and that was a great time. But going straight into it, I'd love to know, because obviously this is, funny enough, my first question. You've been in the industry for nearly 30 years, and I'd love
Yeah.
to know, like, what made you go into the industry? Like, what drew you into animation? Like, was there any, like, was there a friend? Was there someone you knew? Like, how did you get into this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of two separate questions. Like what got me into the game industry and what made me get into animation, which is what got me my start into the industry. So here, I'll start with the latter
Yeah.
first. Uh, so animation, I don't know, man. It's in my blood. My whole life. I mean, I remember being in elementary school and getting detention because I was making flip books in the margins of all my library books before I would turn them in. So somewhere out there are library books with like animation flip books in them that I did as a
A
child.
Christopher Stone artifact from his.
That's right. OG Stone in the margin of like Catcher in the Rye or something like that. So, I've always loved animation. I've always been an artist my whole life. Never thought never thought I'd work in video games really. Never thought I'd work on computers for that matter. I was more of a sculptural artist or an animator, like 2D animation. And somehow found myself graduating from high school early, going to college as a 17-year-old and applying to Ringling School of Art and Design, which was a very up and coming art and animation school back in the day. This was prior to Pixar being in existence.
Oh, wow.
But while I was there, Pixar was born, and Tin Toy, and all these things came out, and they created a relationship with the school I was going to, and changed my major from computer graphics to computer animation, and I followed that. Um, Graduating out of there, I I had some offers to go work in film. School was in Florida though, and at the time I was dating someone in my school, and we're pretty serious. And I'm like, I don't really want to move to California. I didn't. Rhythm and Hughes and Warner Brothers and DreamWorks were all had kind of offers for me. And so instead of moving to California and taking a job in film, I went to work at a little video game company that was in Orlando, and that video game company ended up working on Duke Nukem, and that
Wow.
was kind of my first kind of foray into the industry. Worked on a couple of other little launch title projects for PlayStation 1, and then was there for a few years. Moved out to California, got recruited to come out to Crystal Dynamics in 1997. Came out here, moved out here, and worked there for a few years. Worked on pretty much every project that came out of Crystal Dynamics during those days, Blood Omen and Gex and Mad Dash and Coogee, a lot of Disney Racing, a
Wow.
lot of interesting titles. Left there, went to EA, got attached to the Lord of the Rings franchise very, very early there. Became the director, animation director for that franchise for EA, and then Godfather. And after that, was one of the original creators of Dead Space as animation director for that. Was one that came up with dismemberment and how it works, and I hand authored all the crazy deaths that Isaac had, and all those paired actions with all the enemies. So he was there for 10 years as an animation director, senior director in the studio, then went to start Sledgehammer Games. I was employee number two, Sledgehammer Games, working on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 initially. Actually, we were working on a third person game first. We actually were, that studio was built to create an Uncharted killer branded by Call of Duty. So he had a third person Call of Duty game that we worked on for about 6 to 8 months before we transitioned over to work on Modern Warfare 3 when everything kind of went down at Infinity Ward, and was there for 10 years. Animation director for Modern Warfare 3, Advanced Warfare, World War II. Left there, went to Sony Interactive Entertainment, director on Days Gone.
Great game.
Left there, chief creative officer, Striking Distance Studios, and then now Void Interactive. I am the studio GM. So it's just been a long path of kind of bouncing around and moving to different projects, and trying to have fun at the same time, which is I think is always important in making a fun game.
Yeah, all right, perfect. I have something to show you. I've been staring at this Modern Warfare 3 poster. Give me like
All
two
right.
seconds. You're gonna laugh at this.
Yeah,
Give
man.
me 2
Yeah,
seconds.
of course. No
So
worries.
something that I have that I feel like you might find cool. Uh, so if you can tell, I'm a little bit of a fan of the game. I've got the World War II and Advanced
Yeah,
Warfare
man.
steelbook,
Awesome.
and then moving on, this is like an artifact
Yeah.
from its time, and even cooler, I've got the console. I've got it.
Heck yeah, man.
Oh, is he gonna get it? Is he gonna get it?
Yeah, we're
Fuck
controller buddies.
yeah!
Now, where's your hold on, you need one of these. You need the advanced warfare one also.
You know what's funny? I have it. I don't know where it is. I've got it too. But
That's funny.
I was staring at the poster. I'm like, I gotta show this man. He will appreciate this nerdy thing that I have.
No, it's all good, dude. I should give you here. Hold on a second. I'll give you a little quick pan around at all my game swag if I'm able.
Oh my
So my office,
lord, this is so cool.
they got some signed posters and magazines. This right here is actually it's kind of hard to see, but it's a original music score from World War II.
Oh my lord.
I
That's
can't get
alright. That's
everything else that's
alright.
up there, but all sorts of other stuff around here. So if I give you a better view, I need a better, longer
This
cable for that for people who might
it's
be interested. Oh, that's a terrible camera angle on me now. Hold on a second. Hold on.
growing up, the only poster that I ever had in my room was a Modern Warfare 3 poster as well. Like that's I love that game. And it was actually the first game I
Yeah,
got a gun in gold in camo, and it's like stuck with me
awesome.
to now. But moving on from that, you've mentioned
No worries.
before that you said creativity isn't what I think, it's the way I live. How has that
Mhm.
mindset kind of shaped the way that you approach leadership?
Yeah. Well, leadership, like ironically enough, you've kind of got to be creative in the way you do it, man. I mean, the way you build a studio, the way you work with teams. I think one of the biggest mistakes in leading a studio or leading a large group is trying to manage everybody the same way. And it just doesn't work.
Mm.
You got to be creative and you have to like evolve your leadership skills to fit different teams, different departments. I mean, you might have and I definitely don't want any engineers to take this the wrong way, but you might have an engineering team that don't take feedback great in one studio, and so you have to really like tailor the way you're delivering feedback around things, especially when I am not an engineer, right? I know what I want out of something and how it should work, but sometimes it gets delivered and it's not quite working, and you have to really be creative about how you lace that feedback in with compliments or discussion or whatever it is so that it's received well. You go to another studio like my studio I'm at right now, so Void Interactive. We have like the most social engineers I've ever known in my life. They're all a bunch of Kiwis. They're all in New Zealand. They're just the
Oh
nicest
hell
dudes.
yeah! I mean, not
And
Australians,
just
but we still accept them.
that's tomato tomato, But no, but for real though, a different studio brings different personalities, and so being creative with the way you give feedback to people and the way you guide is always really important. And that's just on the leadership side. I mean, obviously, when you're making a game, creativity is the most important thing, right? And it doesn't mean that you're gonna have like some golden nugget new idea in every single product you work on, but you know, you might see something in another game and you're like, man, this is a really cool system, really cool mechanic, or a really cool level. And the way creatives work is that just starts bouncing around in your mind, right? And then all of a sudden you've got like 47 other versions of that you would like to try or think that you've been inspired by this great thing. So creativity. I think Albert Einstein said it right. Creativity is more important than knowledge, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't Albert Einstein, but it was someone that said it, and I always think that's a great point.
Kind of also going on with like the industry as well. You've kind of experienced the industry change from your many short years, make you not feel old at all, but that's in many years in the industry, because you kind of witnessed its evolution. Now, with the changes that you did experience, what did you think of how the industry was going to evolve when you started? And then from now, where do you think the industry is headed? Do you think VR will become even bigger than it is now, or do you think it will go into another direction?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, never. never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine video games would become what they are now. And I think it's the people that got into making games when I did, mid 90s, early 90s, we did it because we were kind of just passionate about craft and we were passionate about art and we were passionate about games. I was a gamer growing up the whole time. I never imagined I'd make games, but I was a gamer as a kid. And that's, ultimately why I decided to get into it, not just because I didn't want to move to California, right? It was something that I loved. And I think nowadays people get into working on games for different reasons, right? I mean, generational changes too, just in terms of how people are. But I think games are such a big industry now. People get like these dreams of grandeur, right? And they get into it thinking they're gonna, make tons and tons of money, and this is this huge entertainment industry, and that's not why I got into it, and it's still not why I get into it. I mean, obviously, we all need to make a paycheck, but I do this because I love it, right? I love making games, and I love bringing interactive experiences to the fans. And there's nothing more gratifying than people loving the product that you launch. So I think the industry has changed hugely since then. Scope, size, budget across the board. I mean, the first few games I worked on, we were a team of 15, all in,
Wow.
20 maybe, and we did these games over the course of a year, 2 years maybe at most. Um, and so, you compare that to a behemoth like one of the Call of Duty projects, right, where it's 3 years and probably close to 1,000 people all in across multiple studios and departments. And so it's just the scope is huge, right? You'd also compare budgets, right? Like I don't even have to go back to the beginning. I could go to Dead Space. I mean, the original Dead Space, I think we made for $30 million, $40 million.
Wow.
And you compare that now to something like Advanced Warfare or World War II, where we probably spent north of 220, $230 million making that game.
Wow. And now
And
look,
so
you've got games like GTA 6 where they've spent over a billion apparently to make
crazy.
that. Like
Wouldn't surprise me, would not surprise me at all. So yeah, I mean the size of the games have become tremendous, and it's some of it I think is just part of building bigger experiences, and part of it is natural, right? I mean, yeah, you need bigger teams to do bigger things. Some of it's I think probably overblown as well. I think there's a lack of efficiency nowadays that we used to have when we made games. We had a lot of little tricks and bells and whistles, things that we would do to make a game perform better or look better. And nowadays the platforms are so powerful, you really don't need to use tricks. You just add more, right? And that's it's expensive. At the end of the day, that's expensive. So yeah, it's completely now it's completely different than it used to be. Just as much fun, but very, very different.
Well, thanks for going into that and kind of in like the similar realm as well, with also you being in the industry for so long. What kept you like creatively hungry? Like how did you avoid burnout in such a like tough industry, especially for
Yeah.
doing it like being in it for so long?
Yeah. I think everybody tastes a little bit of burnout, no matter what project you're on. I mean, especially the length of the projects now. 3 years is a long time to work on a single project. And it's, you go through these kind of peaks and valleys, right? And I think the thing that keeps you going is momentum and progress forward. You kind of start a game and you're in pre-production and you have all these high aspirations and goals, like, oh man, it's going to be the best thing ever. And then you kind of enter production and you're like, yeah, this is going really good. And then you're like, oh shit, like this is getting scary. We're never gonna finish this game, and like, oh my god, I'm so tired of, grinding on this. But then you kind of turn a corner as you're getting towards the end, and you're like, oh wow, this is actually really coming together. Like it's gonna be this amazing thing. And so you look for kind of the little wins, like whether it's some beautiful piece of art or some system that just is super fun or a mechanic that's built that you're just like, man, I did never expected this to be as cool as it is. And so you kind of look for little wins as you go. But I mean, Burnout's inevitable, man. When I was at Activision, I did 3 Call of Duties in a row, and those projects clearly they afforded me experiences I would never have had otherwise. But after 10 years of doing that, you want something different. Yeah. And then again, not to say that making Call of Duty isn't fun. It was amazingly enter. It was some of the greatest times of my career. But sometimes you look back and you're like, okay, well, we made 3 games that, yeah, different content, different subject matter, but they kind of were the same game for I mean, I hate saying that, but they were, right? I mean, it's very similar. So, I had to move on to something different, and ultimately that's what led me to go to Sony. Is I really enjoyed working on third-person games. And I did a boatload of those back at EA, and they were really, really fun. I mean, the Lord of the Rings projects were amazingly fun to work on, and I love that. I love being able to show your character on screen and you be able to kind of live through them. And it's a little harder to do when you're just a gun. But even in that, right? I've come back now. I'm at Void Interactive, and I'm back in a first-person shooter now because you look for different ways of expanding the experience for the players, and that's kind of what keeps it fresh, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
I,
man. I mean, it's with any job. I think anybody who does a job for a long period of time, there are going to be times when you're like, "Whew." But again, you look for the wins that carry you along the way.
you've done a lot. Like in your career, you've done so many amazing projects, and that kind of reminds me of my second question. You were the second employee at Sledgehammer Games. Helping to build a studio from the ground up. What was the
Mhm.
biggest lessons you learned, about studio culture, leadership, and scalability during that time?
Yeah, yeah. So I've been lucky enough to be part of building a studio from the ground up twice now, both with Sledgehammer and with Striking Distance. I think the thing that I learned more than anything is you need to invest in the best talent, and you don't ever compromise that. And when I say the best talent, it's not just the best artist, the best animator, but it's the best people, and I'm not sure how else to put that, but people that have like a chemistry, and people that have like an excitement and a passion, people who it's about a team, right? It's not about any one person.
I want to say, I feel like I
Yeah,
can definitely agree with what you said. Like, I'm currently working on a TV show on its second season, and out of everything, the crew on this TV show, like everyone gets like vibes together, and I feel like
yeah,
because someone said once that the fish stinks from the head down. So if like the top's not doing well,
absolutely.
and it kind of goes on to your point, I feel like the reason I wanted to come back is because I loved working with everybody, and that brings my best. And I feel like you were just
Yeah,
saying that.
100%, 100%. And it's across the board, right? It's not just people who are on the team, but it's talent that you work with in the shows even, right? You want to hire and work with people that you enjoy spending time with, because, it's funny. You look at LinkedIn and things like that, and there are a lot of people who are like, "Oh, teams aren't families." And it's like when a company refers to you as their family, like it's just bullshit. And I'm like, I mean, I get that. I get that. I do get that point of view. Is like at the end of the day, it is a business. But like, and maybe it's just me because, I'm an old timer, but I really do look at the people I work with like family. I mean, I spend more time with them than I do my family. And that,
They're your
it
second family,
sucks to
like.
say. Yeah, it sucks to say, but it's the truth, right? My best friends are people I have met working in this industry. Glenn Schofield. He's like I said, he's like my brother. I love the guy. I hate the guy like a big brother, and I love him like family, right? But he is, he's someone that I've been working with for 25 years. And I have many other people like that as well that I've worked with for a decade and much, much longer, who are the closest friends I have in this world because, we've gone through battle together. We are bonded by blood in a lot of these projects where it was long hours and but enjoyable, right? Working on problems and working to build something amazing together. That's really critical. So when you're building a studio, look for the best people, and look for the people that you feel comfortable being with at all times, because you get one person that's out of whack, who just doesn't have that same energy and same vibe, and it's like the expression that one bad apple like spoils the bunch, right? And it's totally true. So
Exactly. I could not agree with you more. I feel like some of my favorite people that I get to call friends is people that, I've met, working on a show, and they've made fun of me, I've made fun of them, and I feel like that just I agree with everything
yeah.
you're saying. Honestly.
It's totally true. I mean, it's very much like a game team is very much like a sports team, right? I mean, we all work together towards a single goal. And look, someone might leave. Someone might go from the Golden State Warriors to the Philadelphia 76ers, but they're still friends, right?
Yep.
And it's the same thing. Like even,
We'll make
people
fun of them, but they're still friends. Yeah.
exactly. They're my competition, right? They're going to go ship a game that's going to be competitive with mine and potentially steal my player base, but they're still friends,
Mhm.
right? And it's, I think you look at some of the most successful studios, certainly some of the best studios I've worked at have been ones that are full of people who have worked together before. It's just, you have a certain shorthand, you have a trust, you have a dynamic, and man, you can't put a value on that.
Exactly. And going on from that as well, but kind of back to the Sledgehammer and Call of Duty days, after
Sure.
nearly a decade directing animation for Call of Duty, what aspect of that experience stands out most? Either be like a technical breakthrough or a human leadership moment, like
Man, boy, that's a really tough question because again, like the 10 years I spent as part of that franchise, if one thing stood out to me the most, it probably would be the launch of Modern Warfare 3. And
yeah, I'm not
for multiple
biased, it was
reasons.
pretty good.
It was huge, man. It was huge. I mean, for a long time, it was the quickest selling, biggest, most successful entertainment launch of all time
I
across everything, across film, across. I think if I remember correctly, now this going back a little bit, but I believe when we launched, Avatar was the most lucrative and biggest franchise of all time, and I think it made like $1 billion in 14 days, 17 days,
wow.
something like that. And then we launched Modern Warfare 3, and we made $1 billion. I believe it was in a week or 5 days,
Wow.
and so just crushed it, and just it was such a huge launch. And the thing that's interesting, and a lot of gamers nowadays, younger gamers especially, don't realize is this was before digital downloads. So pre-orders were critical for something like this
I
because otherwise you don't get the game. It
which
was huge. It was massive, and it was a real. Honestly, it was actually a turning point for me in my career, I think, as well, because prior to that, even though I had worked on some big titles, I had worked on nothing the scale of this, and I don't think I ever really grasped the impact and the size of the industry. I can remember I was in Manhattan, with my friend Brett Robbins, who was our creative director, and Don Vecca, who was the audio director, and we were there. When we went into Manhattan, it was crazy. I mean, everywhere we went had Modern Warfare 3 because the game was early parts of the game, especially, was set in Manhattan, first levels, harbor, and it was everywhere, all over the city, everywhere we went. Times Square, huge Modern Warfare 3 things, and we were like, dang, they literally gave us like the key to the city when we got there, which allowed us to go to anything and just walk right on. Like, we immediately out to see Statue of Liberty, no line. Empire State Building, right to the top, no line. Everything, everywhere we went, it was crazy. And then it became launch night, and we were in I think we were in a GameStop, if I remember correctly. We were there to sign autographs when it turned midnight. People came in to get their games, and so we got there. We probably got there around 9 o'clock. And when we got there, there was already a
already a
line of
line
people.
out the door.
Oh my God, not just out the door, but as
Down the
far
street.
down the street as I could even see. Like I couldn't even see the end of the line. And then across the street, there was a Best Buy, and out the door and all the way up the staircase, all the way up onto the rooftop parking garage, a line. And I was like, I mean, it was kind of, I was confused. I'm like, is this for our game? Like, I couldn't even fathom it. I mean, thousands, really, like no exaggeration, thousands of people. And then as we got closer to midnight, it was like ruckus outside. It was like New Year's Eve, and like just people honking horns and setting off fireworks. And then as it got close to midnight, it was like the ball drop. I mean, people counting down 10, 9.
Nine.
It was just like, what is that? Is this for real? Like I just couldn't fathom it. And then we were probably there till, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning signing autographs. I have never been part of something like that and never will again, right? Because that was the era of having to pre-order your game if you wanted to get it. And at the time, it was funny because nothing else could launch around Call of Duty in November because there literally were not enough discs
Yeah.
in the world to print another game. We would
That's
take every single disc. And so, to live through that sort of like just that time of passion around games and the excitement, man, that I irreplaceable. So that absolutely would be my probably my biggest, no, not probably, 100%, my
100%.
greatest memory of working on Call of Duty.
Which is crazy because that was like it wasn't just that location; it was everywhere. Like even in
Everywhere.
Australia, like because
Global.
even in Australia, because obviously it's a population wise, it was a bit smaller
Yeah.
than the US, and it was still exactly the same.
It was
This is
global.
I'm
It
not
was
sure.
crazy.
Something I wanted to know, and please let me know if this is a bad question, but I'd love to know how you balance cinematic storytelling with interactive gameplay moments in a franchise as fast paced as Call of Duty.
Yeah. No, it's not a bad question at all. In fact, it's a really tricky thing. I think one of the things that we always, Sledgehammer Games, that was really our drive, right? Is we are passionate storytellers. And that was, when we came to Call of Duty, it wasn't really known for a great story, right? Great game, super exciting, but if you sat down and you're like trying to figure out exactly what's happening, you're like, what? It doesn't make sense. So we are big storytellers, right? So we wrote very deep stories. We're character builders, right? So we made a big investment in hiring great talent for those games. Kevin Spacey I worked with him for the better part of a year. Um, an amazing actor, right? Josh Duhamel, an amazing actor. I mean, all these talent that we brought, with the very intent of telling a compelling story, and not just like a video game story, but like a story that if you cut all the cinematic work together, like you could sit down and watch it like a movie and be like, man, that's pretty damn good. And so weaving that into the game is tricky, right? Because Call of Duty, it's an action game, right? You want to hit the ground running, you want action, but at the same time, you do want this compelling story. So it's looking at these key moments in the game that can have impact, right? And so, like, look, if I'm referencing World War II, right? That Higgins boat landing, first scene in the game, right? You're in that boat, and we're building the tension, and the guys are talking, and then it's the drop of the gate, and just people shredded. MG42s just buzzing on the mountaintop and just chewing you up, jumping out of the water, getting in the water, coming out of the water. And so we built that energy in that cinematic. So when you come up, you're like, oh shit, I need to run, because if I don't, I'm gonna get chewed to pieces like all my guys that were in my boat with me, right? So it's finding ways to kind of build energy, tell a story so you understand like what your motivations are as a player. But making those things, weaving them into the experience is not always easy because you do it too much, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I'll set my controller down. Oh, well, I'll set my controller down. But if you don't do it enough, you don't necessarily get the story you're trying to deliver, right? And you can do it in different ways, right? I mean, if I look at a game like Ready or Not, which is my current project or my current studio I'm running, we do storytelling in a different way. We don't have these cut scenes and things like that, but we tell it through dialogue, and we tell it very heavily through the environment, right? Like what's actually going on. And so there are different mechanisms and levers you can pull to tell a story. But it's kind of like cooking, right? Making a game is kind of like cooking, and it's like one of the greatest comparisons I could ever make. It's like cooking and not like baking. And I don't know if you're a cook or anything like this, if that makes sense,
No,
but
no, I
you know,
get what you're saying. I get what you said.
baking, you add exactly, it's a recipe, right? You get all your ingredients just right. It's got to be perfect, and then you put it in the oven, and then you wait, right? But it's very precise. That is not video game
Yep.
making at all, right? Video game is cooking, right? It's putting the pan in and putting the ingredients in, and then like mixing it up and tasting it. Like, well, not quite right. Add something different. No, taste it. No, not quite right. And it's a piece of art that you construct bit by bit by bit. Even if you have a plan, like, hey, I know I'm making whatever it's going to be. So it doesn't matter what the recipe is, but I know this is the recipe and this is what I'm making. But what it ends up tasting like and what it ends up being at the end is all the little things that you add as you go along. And that's what makes it great. That's the difference between like a gourmet chef and someone that just throws a bunch of stuff in pot, makes a game, right?
Kind of like going on with like cinematics, I'd love to know like what your favorite like little dialogue moment or like your favorite scene
Man,
cinematic.
boy,
Fuck this.
favorite. Yeah, this is like you're like asking me to choose a favorite child.
Oh, we got a
I
few of
know
these questions in here. I'm gonna warn you.
this is a tough one, man. Like I'll tell you what. I honestly cannot tell you one scene that was my favorite because it is
Ooh.
there have been so many,
What about
so
one that
many.
comes to mind first? That isn't a favorite, but just one that comes to mind first.
Man, one that comes to mind first. God, again, like there are so many. What I will tell you, this is what I would say. There are some actors who I love working with because so many scenes, you get to the end of the scene and you're like, shit, that was so good. Like, just so good. Like, so compelling. Like, literally, like, choking me up. Or could be the same actor. I mean, Josh Duhamel is a great example. Like, he is, you know, probably one of my top three favorite actors to work with. And not just because he is super diverse, like he can be a guy that is intimidating. Dude is funny as hell. Like he interjects comedy into shit sometimes where you're like, man, I don't like that was great. Exactly like that reference you made where he's like trying to read German and then kind of gives it
Yeah,
back.
I know.
Like,
I had a
and
big chuckle with that scene. I still think
he's
about it
great.
now.
Great. He is the greatest. I mean, so my directorial style. Um, so obviously you have a great script, you have a plan for what you're shooting, but I really like the personality of the actors to come through. Because honestly, that's what makes it great. Like if you're trying to force someone into a mold, into a way that they don't act, that doesn't feel natural to them, you're not going to get a good performance. So I have always told every actor I've worked with, this is your script, but when you are delivering your lines or in our scene, if that doesn't seem natural, just you can change the lines. I don't care. As long as it's
Yeah.
telling me the same story, if it's getting the same point across, you phrase it, word it however you want. And yeah, I mean, we might do multiple takes to get it right, but I find that you get a much better performance. And also you involve the talent into shooting, and all of a sudden it's this amazing collaboration. And Troy Baker's another one. Great. He was amazing to work with on Advanced Warfare. Just always had great ideas. Um, and so yeah, man, to pick a single scene, boy, I really
I've
can't
really
do it.
put
I
you on
mean,
the
I'll tell
spot
you
here,
right
I feel
now.
like.
What's that?
I feel like I've put you on the spot here, like
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. Like I love thinking about this stuff. I mean,
it's
I'm sure it was a scene I shot with Josh. I mean, he and I have a real chemistry when we work together, and man, we have come up with some amazing amazing shit. I mean, there's one scene in particular, and it wasn't funny, but it was just a really impactful scene from World War II. Um, with Josh and Jeffrey Pierce. Jeffrey Pierce, another great actor. He's actually he's on the Last of Us show now. Amazing, amazing actor. The two of them, Jeffrey Pierce's character was dying, but that scene where he dies and Josh is there with him and he's got his hand on his shoulder and he's putting the gun in his hand and I mean, I'm kind of getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like you
yeah.
don't you don't always think about video games conveying big emotion, but man, that scene was just so well done. And like you had built this relationship with let's see here, was that Turner? I think his name was Turner in the game. And you loved this character, right? And man, it was a really good scene. Really, really well done. And I can remember like being on stage and being like, "Ooh,
That
and
was
that was
intense.
yeah, for sure." So, I mean, that was one, but man, there were so many, so many. It's really difficult for me to say which is my favorite.
You kind of like answered my next question because like before I get into that, I remember like if you Google like the most cinematic moment in gaming, I remember that World War II clip will always pop up in like a montage or like. So I remember I played the game when it came out, and I remember sitting there and like I was just getting into story games. So I'm sitting like this is a good story. Like I was sitting, I'm like, damn, why'd they get rid of this guy? I love this man, and now we're stuck with the other guy, and then obviously at the end where is it Zussman? Is that how you say his name?
Yep.
He gets
Yep.
taken. I'm
Jonathan
like,
Tucker.
you better get, but you get it, better get him. Like you better get this
Yeah.
man. We've grown to
Yep.
like this man. But
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. My next question was, what was your most memorable experiences working with talent like Troy Baker and Josh? You kind of answered that in a way.
So many, so many. And honestly, like this has been honestly that is probably my favorite part of my entire career has been working with talent and shooting, these amazing cinematics for some of these huge games.
Didn't you get to
And
work
again,
with
some of the relationships too.
uh, uh what's her name? It's Karen Fugahara. Is that how you say it? Or
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah,
Karen's a sweetheart.
you get
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. No, Karen was great. She played Danny in Callisto Protocol, and so worked with her for 3 years, and I love that girl. She's so fun to work with, and again, like we touched on very early on, even when we cast people for the game, I'm always looking for good people, right? People that I want to spend time with and have like a chemistry with. And that's, it's a really important part of like casting, right? Is not just your relationship as the director to them, but also like what's their relationship as a cast. And so we try to do that as much as we can too, where we have them reading together or whatnot. And that's very effective at building a great cast.
You know what I gotta ask? I was just thinking about it, kind of going back to Modern Warfare 3. But there were about 13 years later, apparently a secret ending was discovered for Modern Warfare 3 where you've just hung Makarov and he's sitting there and a guy walks out the door. I remember seeing that, I'm like, whoa, how has this just been discovered? Did you know about that? Like, what's the details on this? This is
I mean, I'm pretty sure, didn't we shoot that in the game where we had the silhouetted
no,
figure? No, did we not? Man,
no,
I
that
can't
because
even remember.
the ending was once you hang Makarov,
Just him
Price lets his
smoking, Price smoking a
yeah,
cigar.
but then it fades to black with sirens. But apparently, the secret ending is where it doesn't fade to black, and the guy walks out the door.
Man, this is I know exactly the scene. For whatever reason, I thought we had done a false ending with it where Price sat there because I remember, you got Price smoking the cigar, you're
Yep.
puffing the smoke. But again, like it's been so freaking long. I thought that we had a fake ending there where we went to black, we ran the credits, and then we came back up with the silhouette of the guy. Now, I can't remember. There were so many incarnations of what we wanted to do there. In short, that guy's nobody. Like the real answer is we wanted to leave that open for a sequel. We wanted to have the shadow figure, like, who was running the actual show, and leave us open for another sequel there.
Ooh, yeah.
But we didn't know. We had no idea who it was at the time.
Kind of crazy that it
That's
was discovered 13 years later. That's kind of nuts.
yeah, and that's kind of blown my mind right now because like, and again, like it's been so long. Gosh, I mean, what, 12 years since I worked on that game. Um, I swear that we had that in the game, but yeah, maybe we didn't. I mean, there are all sorts of different things like that. I mean, we had a Advanced Warfare. We had a completely different ending as well.
What was the different
Um,
ending for Advanced Warfare?
the Advanced Warfare ending. So obviously, you probably remember the ending that we shipped
Yeah.
with, which was, cutting off the arm, the whole thing. In my opinion, we actually had a much better ending in our initial version.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
and in this ending, and again, you'll have to forgive me, we're going back a
That's
while,
all right. I forgive
but
you.
but Jonathan Irons, Kevin Spacey, had this great same rooftop balcony. He had this great monologue talking about, why he did everything and blah 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 blah. And in the end, he, you've got your gun on him the whole time. He walks up to you and takes your gun and sticks it in his mouth and holds the gun and wants you to kill him.
And do you get the choice to do it? Is that what I assume?
Get the choice whether or not you do it or not. Now, if you don't do it, he still does
Oh,
it.
he does it.
And
Okay,
so
yeah.
he ends up killing himself, and there's, a bigger story. But I can remember shooting that scene with Troy and Kevin, and man, it was a really good scene.
Does he do that to stay in control? Because like even at the ending, he does what he does to stay in control, doesn't he? Like because he.
Yeah. Well, and the mindset around, and again, I'm trying to remember the whole story ending that was different, but just from the point of view of a scene, it was a much more impactful scene. I mean, the chopping off the arm, it was like, I don't know. I think the whole point was it didn't feel it didn't feel heroic. It didn't put the player in like a hero position where it's like I'm gonna sacrifice my arm, my robotic arm to. It was a very put irons in the position of being sacrificial, and I think that was kind of the argument against it. But I'll tell you what, it was a damn good ending, and I bet if you talk to Troy Baker, he would probably tell you the same thing. It was a good shot, man. So, but there's tons of things like that. I mean, there have been so many scenes. I mean, some of my favorite directorial scenes haven't even been with actors; have been with stunt talent, and that's another
We've got some
avenue of my
questions about
career that's
that
been
later
a
on.
blast. Yeah.
We've got some good questions about that. And something that just came to mind, I'm not sure if you were, I don't know if this was Sledgehammer or not, but there was an Xbox 360 that was found at a Goodwill with a like Call of Duty title that was in development. Like Call of Duty, like Future Warfare or something was like the code name or something along
Interesting.
those lines. Does this ring a bell at all?
So yeah, well, so Future Warfare, it could have been. I'm trying to remember. It could have been Infinite Warfare. It could have been Ghost. It
Okay.
wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been Advanced Warfare. That was kind of what they were calling Infinite Warfare and Ghost at one point. Now, NeverSoft, prior to them merging with Infinity Ward, actually had built a very, very cool Call of Duty experience on their own that I would probably call Future Warfare. And I want to say that they were even the ones that cued that. Now, but they had done some really cool stuff in that demo. Now, that demo eventually, when they merged with Infinity Ward, that became Infinite Warfare. But very cool demo, driving a vehicle on the moon, like all
Yeah.
sorts of crazy, crazy stuff. They also did, the first flying missions and spaceships, and again, that became part of Infinite Warfare. But yeah, that probably would have been their project. I had never heard this, but it kind of doesn't surprise me, I guess.
Also something that was found many years later. I'm noticing a trend here with all these discoveries always happening a decade later.
Yeah.
Now,
Digital archaeologists.
well, I appreciate you answering those Sledgehammer questions. Now, moving on
Yeah.
to some of your other work. With Days Gone, you kind of jumped in mid development, which kind of
Yeah.
sounds like a high stake move. How did you step into a team and adjust creative direction without stepping on people's work or morale?
Well, I don't think I stepped on anybody's morale. I may have stepped on people's work, but it was all in the effort to make a great game. And yeah, I came on super late in that game. I mean, that game, when I joined, had already been delayed 4 times, I think. Initially that was being developed as a PSP game.
Wait, what?
And
Really?
yeah,
Wow, I
and
don't think that.
and
Wow.
and that became, again, this is prior to my arrival, but all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is actually a cool game. Let's launch this for PlayStation 4. And so, the pipeline and the process and the graphics, everything, right? I mean, had been designed for PSP. All of a sudden, that needed to grow by leaps and bounds. So part of the delays were just, project scope and platform change and whatnot. It was also really hindered by being on a pretty early version of Unreal you know, that the engineering team at Ben Studio, which by the way, for a small engineering team, holy crap, so good. But they had built a whole lot of custom stuff into that engine. So upgrading the engine at that point, even though it was well into, I think it was on 4.3 at something by that time, we were still on a very old version of Unreal, and that kind of slowed us down as well. So coming on board, I knew that the game was delayed. I joined with just a little over, no, it was probably about exactly a year left in development until our new ship date. And joining that project, it was actually really interesting, right? Because I got a chance to look at it a little bit, and I knew a few people. I mean, one of the things about being in the industry for so long is pretty much everywhere you go, you're going to know someone or you've worked with someone there. And there were a few people there that I knew. And I remember prior to joining, I took their E3 demo and I just broke it down. And I made a whole breakdown of the entire demo and what I would change. And I sent it to them. And honestly, I think that was probably the thing that they were like, "Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
this guy's got some pretty good ideas. Like maybe we should hire him." And I met the team, and it was a great team. Animation team was super eager, and it was just a great team to meet. And so, when I joined them, the first thing I did for the first, maybe month, or maybe even 2 months, is I just played the game. The game was huge. I mean, we're talking, if you're following just the alpha path, it's a 30-hour game, easy, easy. Not even doing all the beta paths or any of the bonus stuff. So I just played the hell out of the game and made notes as I played.
Wow.
Uh, and it was interesting, right? So a lot of my job, well, my job more than anything on that game through in that last year was probably partially an editor, someone who just played the game and was like, this doesn't make sense, or we should change this, we should change that. This isn't, maybe up to snuff. What can we do to make Deacon more likable? Because like Deacon in general, like when I played it, I was like, I kind of hate this guy. Like he kind of seems like he's just an asshole drug dealer, and like, so there were a lot of changes that we needed to make to kind of help give a better likability. And you're going to spend 30 plus hours playing as this guy. You kind of want to like who you're playing as, right? So figuring out ways to make that better. But then also looking at the systems and the mechanics and the gunplay. There were things in the gunplay that didn't feel very good. And when I got hired up there, I immediately, hired a bunch of people that I'd worked with in the past and brought them in to help out, which again is really, like I said, you work best sometimes with people that you know. And some of these guys came in, they reworked the entire weapon system. They made the weapons all feel better. Having come from Call of Duty, I had a lot of very strong opinions on guns
Yeah.
and audio, and gave a lot of feedback on audio and the game in general. But yeah, a big part of my job was editor. A big part of my job was just refining what was there. And honestly, like when you make games, that's the hardest part. Getting like 0 to 70, 80% is actually, um, it's not that difficult. It's getting from that, 70 or 80 to like 90, 95. That's hard. That's the hard stuff. And so, that's really what I was there for, is to help us get us over the line and make really strong suggestions about things to cut, things to change. And man, I'll tell you what, like I'm really proud of that game. It didn't have the critical success I think that Sony wanted. And again, they'd spent a ton of money making it just because of the amount of time. I wish that we had moved on to Days Gone 2, which was the plan at one point. And boy, I would have loved it. I would have loved being part of that. And who knows, maybe I never would have left to go start Striking Distance Studios and Callisto Protocol wouldn't exist. But it was a very, very enjoyable, and that was an amazing team up there. I have nothing but respect for that Bend Studio team still to the day, even though a lot of those guys aren't there anymore.
Didn't they just do like a remaster or something like that for like the
Yeah,
PS5 that you
they're
could?
about to launch a Days Gone remastered, which is really cool. And I'm actually pretty excited to play it. I'm curious to see what they did. In my heart of hearts, even though I know it'll likely never happen because there's almost nobody there still from the original Days Gone. But in my heart of hearts, I hope they make a sequel. It was a great game. Deacon's a great character. Sam Witwer is amazing. I mean, that's why I cast him in Callisto Protocol, is he was so freaking good as Deacon. And I love working with that guy. Another guy who's just a master and just funny as hell too, and just a generally good guy. Sam Witwer is amazing. So yeah, there's some great stuff in that game for sure. I was really, really, really proud of what we were able to do.
With you working on the Callisto Protocol for so long, what was it like seeing your work up on a video billboard in Times Square? I remember that must have been a pretty surreal moment to be sit there
Yeah.
recording your work in Times Square. Because I know you've probably seen like your advertisements for your games everywhere, but Times Square is pretty big.
Well, I mean, it was big and it was cool, but again, maybe I'm a little spoiled because Modern Warfare 3 was just vomited all over Times Square. I mean, you couldn't get away from the, you know, 500-foot billboards, but it was cool. It was still very, very cool, and like the augmented reality quality of it was really awesome. I mean, I think I was a little disappointed in it. I felt like we could have done it better. But it was still cool, 100%. I mean, it's always cool seeing marketing for your games. Doesn't matter how big or small it is, you know.
It's cool just saying whatever. Now, going to Void and Ready or Not, this is actually something a bit local to me with this question. Now, I'm not sure if
Yeah,
you would have dealt with this, but funny enough, Ready or Not was banned in Australia for a little bit of time, or it was removed from Steam. Now,
yeah.
were you aware of the reason why it got taken down beforehand, or did you only find out after?
We only found out after, and it was a funny little thing, honestly. It's all resolved now, thank goodness. But it literally was it was like a documentation problem. It wasn't even like a content issue. I mean, you would think with Ready or Not, you're like, oh, it's a content issue. But no, it literally was like a documentation issue that we needed to fix, and we resubmitted it and got it taken care of. But yeah, no, we had no idea. All of a sudden, Sterling Rank, who's our COO, lives in Australia, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, your game is down," and I'm like, "That's the worst impression of him ever." But that's basically what happened, right? And then we're like, "Oh, okay, well, let's figure out why." And then the community started getting all inflamed. Sterling, don't hate me for my bad impression
I,
of you.
I remember when it got big, because I bought the game ages ago, and I remember I saw on my like Steam page it was like a community discussion, Ready or Not banned in Australia. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah,
what the hell's going on here? And I remember
yeah.
reading a Reddit post and all the theories. It was like, oh, it was because of an image in this mission, or it was because of this. It was, and then I remember they were like, oh, they're all being secretive in the Discord. It was a fun little day reading all that.
No, not at all. You know what? And that's one thing, and I love this about Void, and it's something that I will always kind of beat the drum of is, we try to be really transparent with our community, and it's if I've learned one thing about making games and gamers is they just want transparency. You know, it's not, they just don't want to feel like they're getting lied to. They just don't want to feel like they're getting surprised or anything like that. Like what I find is if like you're just straight with your community,
Better to
they're
be
going to respect
honest.
you for it, right? And that's I'm the same way, right? I mean, and I actually love that. That's one thing I love about the gaming community, and this is something that actually has changed over the years. And like when you look at games getting delayed, right? GTA just got delayed. Back in the day, there used to be a much more negative sort of vibe on that. You delayed your game, and people were like fiery about it and very like, oh, how dare, blah blah blah. It was very negative. And nowadays, it's actually really different. And as a developer, I really appreciate that because it's like clearly we want to deliver a great experience, no matter what the game is, no matter how big, no matter how small. 5 million game, $250 million game. The similarity is that we just want to give you a great experience. So as the gaming community, I think it's nice now where they can actually say like, "Hey, it's okay." And you see this a lot. It's okay. Let them delay it. They want to make a great game. Like way rather wait a couple more months than like have something delivered that's less than great. And that's the same way we feel, right? I mean, obviously, we talked about before, working on a game for 3 years or longer, it takes it out of you. But the last thing anybody wants is to spend all that time making a great game and then release it and feel like you weren't able to live up the expectations of your audience. And so I really like that the community is kind of like a much more accepting community now in that way. And so, thank you to all the gamers out there for understanding that, we all just work our asses off at making great experiences for everybody. And all we want is for y'all to have fun doing it, right? And so if it's getting delayed, it's because we're making a better
It's for a
experience
good
for you,
reason,
for no
usually.
other reason.
With you saying you needed documentation, was that because of the classification board here in Australia that, or something like that? Because like you said, you found out after. Did somebody
Yeah.
email you to telling you what was wrong, or did you have to email someone to figure out what
No,
happened?
no, our marketing team actually had to reach out and find out what the problem was, and it came down to a documentation issue with ratings.
Oh yeah,
We have different
classifications.
ratings boards for different areas in the world, and one rating didn't actually cover the bases that Australia wanted, and so yeah, it really wasn't a huge deal. It was just we just had to jump through some hoops, and it was all good. So
I don't know, for such a small thing, it had such a big reaction. It was so. I already said it.
totally.
It was funny reading every theory that was posted. I'm like,
Oh, it's
wow.
crazy. It was crazy. Yeah, I know. I was joking with Sterling about it, and I'm like, dude, is that you like complaining on all the boards? I'm like, are you the only Ready or Not player in all of Australia? And it's just like, no,
Now,
he's not.
something also about Ready or Not. I know you said you have a bit of creative when it comes to your role, and I've seen quite a few
Always.
like concepts floating around on Reddit, like things like airport executive protection details and other ideas to expand Ready or Not. Have you come across of any community ideas that have kind of like generally surprised you, or that you'd personally love to see it make it into the game one day?
I mean, our community is awesome. I love our community and the ideas that they have. I mean, we directly access community feedback when we determine the things that we're going to change and refine in the game. We are super responsive to that. And so, yeah, man. I mean, the community has some great ideas, and we have a Miro board of like all these different experiences we want to do. I know the community wants like a lot of like smaller missions, like little tiny missions, and so Sterling and I and Sean, who's our design lead, like we've come up with some really great ideas. And yeah, I mean, I can't tell you what they are because we're probably going to do them, and then Dale, I'd have to fly over there and I'd have to kill you because you know all of our secrets, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, I'd rather
But
keep it on the safe side and stay stay
Yeah,
alive.
let's just keep it, and then you'll be surprised too. But yeah, man, we are always listening to our community. I mean, we are super community centric, and even with us launching on console, right? We are very conscious of wanting our PC community to know that, man, they are by no means forgotten, right? And we want them to be just as happy, with the content that we're giving away, even our pre-order content that we're offering for consoles. All the PC players that have the game, they get it. They don't have to do anything. They just get it, right? And so we are very conscious of an amazing community that we have, and we want to sustain that going forward. We have big plans for the IP, and
Ooh.
we want everybody along on the ride with us for sure.
When it comes to you guys like adding levels, when do you determine when it's a paid DLC versus a free update? Like, what's the
Yeah.
factors for when it comes into that?
If we're talking about Ready or Not specifically,
Yeah, ready or not? Yep.
we really pride ourselves on not being like super money grab sort of vibe. We want people to when they pay for something, we want people to feel like they get what they deserve, right? And they get their money's worth. I mean, our DLC packs are $9, and arguably, we're giving multiple maps, we're getting multiple weapons and skins. It's actually a pretty good value for what we're giving. The DLC that we launch for free, usually that's because we feel that's what the community deserves, right? Either it's not quite big enough for us to feel like we want to charge for it, or it's something they've seen that we've reworked and made better. And we don't want it to feel like we're trying to nickel and dime our gamers, right? I mean, again, we make this game out of passion. That's where the game came from. The game came from two passionate gamers that just loved SWAT, and they wanted to make their own game. That's where it came from. That's how this studio exists. And so we continue to kind of carry that, right? We continue to beat that drum. We're passionate about what we do. We're passionate about delivering great experiences to our players, and we want you to feel like you feel like you get your money's worth for everything, and not like we're just trying to bleed you for every penny. That's not who we are.
Coming, this might be a silly question, but out of curiosity, when it comes to the thought process behind deciding what features people get on console versus PC, what is the thought process behind that? Especially when it came to modding, because I'm pretty sure modding's not going to be available on console. Was that like a bit of a thought process on like maybe no modding on console versus PC?
We are going to make sure that PC and console all get the same experiences. And some of it may not come online day one, but we don't ever want anybody to feel like it's console versus
Like
PC, and
one's
this
getting
person
more
gets
than
this.
the other.
No, 100% no, right? And that's why we built full crossplay into the game. We want everybody to play together, right? And that's why when people buy DLC, I mean, I love this. If I go and buy our DLC and I want to play with you, you don't have to buy it.
Oh,
You just play
really?
the maps that I know.
So the
Nope.
host has the deal. Okay, that's cool. We
Whoever
love that.
hosts that, anybody can play it, right? And it's not. And again, this is the way that we want to treat our community, right? And we're super excited to have this whole new player base on Xbox and PlayStation. But our PC market, they're super important to us. Everybody's important to us, and we want everybody to get the same opportunity to play the great game with every great piece of content that we offer.
It's really funny. One of my brothers is not like a fast shooter kind of person, but he loves like the SWAT, like the slow kind of burns. And I remember that I'm pretty sure a
Yeah.
little bit ago we were just talking like he was saying he'd love to have Ready or Not on console. And I was like, oh, if they add it to console, they're probably not gonna have.
Ask if you shall
I
receive.
know. I was like, but I was like, they're probably not gonna have crossplay. But then, what a shock! You guys have crossplay, and it's coming on console. I told
Yep.
him we'll finally get to play. What a
Yep,
shock!
absolutely, man. No, it's exciting, and it's been a real hard push for the team, right? I mean, this team has grown by leaps and bounds. We're over 70 people now, and just really changing a lot of our development mentalities and processes, and it's been a really important part of trying to get us where we are right now. And like I said earlier, we've got huge plans for this IP. So,
You've got me
getting on
excited, and I
console.
don't even know what's coming.
Yeah, man. Well, you should be excited. We've got a lot of really cool stuff down the road, and Void's an amazing place to work, right? We're self-funded, we're self-published, we do our own marketing. We are masters of our domain, right? And we don't have to put Mountain Dew cans in the level or something like that. We don't have to, there's nothing. We do what we feel is right for the game, and man, that's a really powerful place to be, and a very rare place to be for any development studio, honestly.
I'm just having a bit of a laugh. Wasn't that like the go-to combo back in like the Modern Warfare days to have like Doritos and Mountain Dew? Like that was always
Yeah.
that
Hey,
was
listen,
cool.
yeah, but it is. I mean, that's always been a big product placement in Call of Duty was Mountain Dew and Doritos, and you get your XP points and all that stuff. I mean, hey,
Oh
I
yeah.
drank a lot of Mountain Dew when we launched Modern Warfare 3. I'm not gonna lie. Uh,
Do
but
you remember?
yeah, why not? I mean, if it makes sense.
Do you remember that like subscription or not subscription? Was it Call of Duty Elite or like Call of Duty VIP that you could get back in the days? Like that was
Yeah,
the early days of what that of
yeah,
subscriptions. Wow. Actually, this goes on to my next question. You've kind of
sure.
posted about collector's editions before, I've noticed on your
Yeah.
LinkedIn. When putting those together, what's the thought process behind deciding what physical items to include? And what's your take on a trend of collector's editions nowadays leaning more towards digital content instead of physical keepsakes?
I mean, usually the process, and I think it's not like a super complicated thing. And it's just like, okay, if I'm a gamer, like what's the stuff that's interesting to me?
Still
You know?
books.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what's cool? I mean, like for me, I'm not actually a huge Steelbook fan. I mean, I
I've
kind of
heard.
don't,
Nah.
but some people love them, right? I get it, right? For me, it's like, what do I like? Like, I like behind the scenes stuff a lot. So I'm a big fan of art books. I love art books
I have.
in general.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I've got my Advanced Warfare art book I got from the collector's edition somewhere here.
Nice. That's a good one, man. I think I've got an old Dead Space art book sitting down here somewhere
You know
too,
what's
but
funny?
I love it. Yeah. Behind the scenes stuff's great. So I love art books. I like statues too. I'm a big
Ooh.
fan of like cool statues and
Well,
things are just not stuff that you're gonna put into use every single day, but I always think that's cool. I'm a big fan of those things.
ooh, what do you think? Like, out of all the collector's editions of the games that you've worked on, what was your favorite? Because the Modern Warfare 3 one was pretty cool. I did like, I know you didn't work on it, but the Black Ops 2 care package was sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
They had a drone that was pretty cool, a
Oh,
remote
yeah.
drone. Black
Black Ops
Ops. That was
1, the RCXD. That you,
Yeah,
wow.
that was pretty
They used to
awesome.
be so cool back in the day. What's happened, man? What?
Yeah, I don't know, man. But yeah, the best collector's edition, man. I don't know. It's a tough one. Um, Again, they kind of are all real similar nowadays, which I don't have a problem with because typically it's a lot of my favorite stuff, right? Where it's like a statue and a book and a steel case or a patch and things like that. We actually our edition for Callisto was pretty awesome, honestly. Like we had a cool statue, we had a comic book based around Danny. We had some really cool patches and pins
The
and
comic book does sound really cool. I'm not gonna lie, I just heard that. I'm like,
yeah.
that sounds pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that comic book was. I've got like 1,000 of them. I should put a couple in the mail to you. I think
You
I've
should
got
a streamly signing where you like sign them all and
yeah, all up on eBay. There you
yeah,
go.
there you go. There's your millionaire money making method right there.
Exactly, it's my side hustle.
Now, moving
Yeah,
on, something I would like to know about. I did see that you did work on the Godfather games, and now I'd love to know because with you working on it, you had the incredible opportunity to bring back legends like James Caan and Robert Duvall. Were you
yeah,
involved in any of those recording sessions, and what was it like
yeah.
trying to capture those iconic performances in a video game setting?
It was. I think that was maybe my first real experience working with just legends. I mean, being around those guys, I mean, it was just audio recording and video reference because we weren't doing facial capture on those guys or anything like that. But yeah, James Caan, Robert Duvall, and then even Marlon Brando. I mean, the Godfather game was actually Marlon Brando's very last performance that he ever did for anything.
Wow.
So yeah, so getting a chance to kind of be part of that experience was memorable, man. Really memorable. And these are the things, right? I mean, these are the things that you never would expect when you get into making video games, is that one day you're going to be getting to meet legends, right? Like literally film
You've literally
legends.
got like a sheet full of people you've met who are
Yeah.
incredible. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, not just met, but got a chance to like work with, for that matter. Like, just I really I could not be more fortunate in the experiences I've had in my career. And like you say that I've got, oh yeah, I've worked on these great games, but man, I'm I sometimes it doesn't even seem real. I feel very, very fortunate for every experience I've had in my career, for sure.
Kind of feel like similar in a way, especially like I'm only on episode 17, but like every episode has been nuts. Like the fact that I go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and I get to focus on things that I enjoy. Like I said, I love the behind the scenes. So when I found you on LinkedIn, I'm like, holy crap, this guy seems cool. Let me send him a message, and then I learned more about you and Glenn Schofield and Brett Robbins and a few others.
Yeah.
And now look, now I get to ask you nerdy questions, and I love every second of this.
Yeah, man. Good times. I love doing this stuff, right? And it's funny, I remember like I said early in our interview, when I got into to doing animation, which ultimately led me to games, I was someone that built sculptures a lot of the time. Like I liked having something very tangible, and I liked, because it's like this is what holds the memories of your creativity. And sometimes, even though I've got an office full of like memorabilia and stuff like that from the games I've worked on, sometimes you miss having that. You miss having like this tangible thing that you can like sit and talk about. And so for me, I love doing interviews where you look back and you think about the projects in the past, because it's funny, you don't think about them a
you
lot of the time.
you
You
get
just
to
move forward on the next project. And even when I did that interview with Glenn and Brett, I guess maybe it was last year. That was the first time that the three of us, I mean, the three of us are super good friends. We get together separately all the time, but the three of us don't get together that often. And so for the three of us to kind of be sitting together and just like reminiscing about the 20 plus years of games that we've made together, man, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And you forget things. And I'm 52 now, and I've forgotten like so many things about the stuff. And so for those guys to be like, hey, remember this, it's like, oh, man, yeah, it's just I love it. I love talking about the things in my career, because it reminds me again of like how lucky I am, and how fortunate I am to do what I do. And I can't ever lose sight of that.
You get to sit here and just talk about all the great experiences you've had over your career. Like I'm just sitting here just listening to this, and I'm like, this is really interesting. Like I'm loving this. I love hearing all about it. Love hearing the stories.
Glad to hear it.
Going back to the Godfather, something that I saw in your website, which kind of piqued my interest, when you joined a project late in development, especially one that's flagged at risk, what's your process of identifying what needs immediate attention versus what you leave alone? Is there like a mental checklist you rely on, or does it come down to instinct and experience?
Honestly, a lot of it is experience. There is no substitute for experience. And I play the game. Well, I would say maybe it's a little bit of both. It's experience and instinct for different things, right? So instinct is what makes this fun, right? What is this lacking? That makes this a fun experience. And the process basically is just playing the game. And I was a gamer. I still enjoy playing games. I understand games and how they work and the motivations. And so when I sit down and play something that's been worked on, and I'm supposed to be identifying the things to improve, I'm putting myself in the position of a gamer first. Like what would I want? And that creates a list, right? So then after that, that's where the experience kicks in, because now I look at that list and I say, all right, what's doable? And depending on how much time we got a year left. All right, I can look at this list and I know how long these things are going to take based on the 20 other games that I've made with similar systems or deadlines or whatever. I can look at this list and say, this is 6 months of work, 8 months of work, a year of work. And I can be pretty reliable with those estimates at this point. And so there is a component of experience there that you don't get. You don't get unless you have someone who has just made a lot of games. And so it's you putting those two things together, right? And then the third thing is just having a really critical eye. And I think me being an artist first allows me to have a very critical eye about everything that goes in the game, and that could be anything. That could be an environment. It could be an animation. It could be a line delivery in a piece of a cinematic. It could be a design mechanic and like whether or not it's compelling enough. Like just having a very, very critical eye is really important. And my mentality has always been I would rather ship less content that's absolutely stellar than a whole lot of content that is either unmemorable or average. And so I am very willing to cut content, no matter what. No matter what. Doesn't matter how much time has been put into it. I am always willing to cut it if it's not making the game better.
And that's when you make a director's cut for the extra stuff that was
There you
missed.
go. And then all of a sudden you're playing the game and you're like, this is terrible. This is slow and what this makes no sense and boring. And oh, that's because we put all the shit back in that we cut because we didn't want it.
Kind of like also moving on to another game that you worked on. I also appreciate you going in depth about that experience with the Lord of the Rings. You're talking. You mentioned the word stunt teams, and I'd love to know.
Yeah.
What was it like directing the same stunt team that worked on the Lord of the Rings films for your motion capture sessions? Did their experience on the films influence how you approach the game animation?
Oh hell yeah, absolutely! Like those guys were amazing. When I got onto Lord of the Rings, that was my first experience working with like real, true AAA talent, like stunt talent. And these guys, they were all a bunch of crazy Kiwis. Um, Really, and when I say that with the utmost respect and love because I love those guys. I can't even remember all their names, but Kirk and Sharon, who led that stunt team, Kirk was Viggo Mortensen's stunt double in the film. Sharon, she was multiple stunt characters in the film, as well as part of the stunt choreography team, I believe. They were a married couple. Shane was this real big guy. He did a lot of the Urukai stuff. And gosh, I feel terrible for not remembering everybody's name, but man, the seeing those guys on stage, just like wheeling these swords around and like moving exactly like the film was just amazing. The guy, and again, I feel so terrible, it was so long ago, but the
we'll
guy who was the
we'll put our
stunt,
names up on screen in case we'll
there
remember
you go.
this.
Yeah, you can search him up for me, and then I'll be like, yeah,
Yeah,
no.
that's it.
The guy who was the stunt actor for Gimli, little guy, that guy was amazing. Watching him like twirl this axe around on the stage was just the coolest freaking thing ever. And honestly, it's really what made Return of the King was the first game we used actual talent from the film, and Two Towers was all done by hand. So when we did Return of the King and we had these guys on stage, it created an experience that was much, much, much more like the film. I mean, it looked exactly like the moves in the movie, right? And it was, I mean, that was EA's whole thing at the time was like, we wanted you to play the movie, right? And so, man, it was so much fun, so much fun. And like one of the things that stands out to me the most, we had one day on set where, trying to remember if it was Kirk or if it was the guy that did the mocap for Legolas. And I feel terrible for forgetting this guy's name, but they were
Another name
twirling the
thrown on
sword
screen.
around. Yeah, right. But they were twirling a sword around, and it was a move. Shane, I think it was Shane and Kirk, and so Shane was doing this big Urukai motion. He had this big, the big Urukai axe, spiked axe, and he swept this thing around and cleared the sword out of Kirk's hands. The sword flew up and lodged itself into one of the cameras on the stage and just broke it, sparks, the whole thing. Um, it was like it was so cool. I mean, it sucked because it ended our shoot day, but man, what a cool thing to happen though, just to watch that interaction and man, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was just an absolute blast working with those guys, and I kept in touch with them for many, many years. Sadly, I've lost touch with most of them at this point, unfortunately. So
I feel like that kind of happens in this industry sometimes after a long time. There's
yeah.
there's a story. I interviewed the one of the producers for LA Noire, and she was
Oh,
saying
very
how
cool.
she worked with some incredible people on there, and then like a decade later, got to meet them again in another set with like because they did No
Yeah.
Contact, and it's like whoa. Whoa.
It is pretty funny how often that sort of stuff happens, where, you cross paths with the same people over and over and over again, and you don't expect it until all of a sudden you look, oh, hey, good to see you again, And
Whoa, it's great to
as,
see you.
as big as an industry it is, it's actually very small.
Feel like that. I don't know if it's the same over in the US where you're based, but do you ever find like once you work with like a certain group of people who are like good at what you do, you kind of see them in like recurring roles like in your future?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I think, you look at even film directors, right? They tend to work with a lot of the same people, right?
Christopher Nolan.
Absolutely. Great example, right? And it's no different, man. I mean, in a directorial role, especially like in a cinematic director role, which was part of my position in pretty much every studio I've been to, I want to work with people that I love working with. And so there's a group of them, right? Jeff Shine, great actor. I've worked with him on 3 projects now. Josh Jamal, worked with him on multiple projects. Russell Richardson, another guy I worked with on multiple projects. Sam Witwer, and like you just keep you've worked with a lot of the same talent.
Didn't you work with William Fletcher for Modern Warfare 3? I just remembered this. And you had a few other. I'm starting to realize how stacked the Modern Warfare 3 cast was.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah, everybody and their mother wanted to be in that cast. A lot of it was just VO recording, so I wasn't part of a lot of it. I mean, some of it I was, but a lot of it, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to be part of. That was Don Vecca, who was just an amazing audio director. He was our audio director on Dead Space as well, and he managed most of that stuff for MW3.
Something I'd love to know, compared to working on an original IP like Dead Space, how does your creative process shift when dealing with an established cinematic like world like Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, it's totally different. Totally different. With when you have an established IP or an owned IP, you're always having to be respectful to the original title, right? You're always having to communicate with the production studio, whether it's New Line Cinema or whoever it is, right? So Lord of the Rings in particular, right? Everything that we did um, on Return of the King, especially because we were making that game in parallel with the film, everything went back and forth to New Line. It would New Line, Weta to us at EA, and we all worked in the same pool. So when I'm doing a scene and we're integrating a bunch of Mummakill, and I'm like, what's a Mummakill? I have no idea. Like I see it in the script, like Mummakill, and then we're like, oh well, we'll find out. And then New Line delivers assets. We would get the assets from Weta. And we were like, oh man, it was like a giant elephant. It's crazy, right? And like, okay, we put that in the game. And so you have to be very, very thoughtful and faithful to what that brand is. And again, on Return of the King, it was even more so because it was one of the first games that was doing, it might have been the first game that actually did match move cinematics that went from film footage and blended quote unquote seamlessly to a very low res PlayStation 2 version of that same cinematic. But hey man, for what it was in the day, it was like, damn, that was really cool. But we had to be absolutely lockstep with them when we did all that stuff. So the process when you're working on a branded title, not always as creative, at least not in the traditional sense. You have to be creative in a different way because you have a much smaller box to work in. So you've got the box that is the IP, that is the brand, that is the pillars of what makes this what it is. And when you develop a game for that, you work with those same pillars, and you build within that box. And hopefully you build a product that is faithful and hopefully expands the story in some way. I mean, that's always the licensed products to me that are the best are the ones that expand on the original story, right? Even though Lord of the Rings and Two Towers, The Godfather, those are all great games. Godfather probably most so was the most fun from a storytelling point of view because we weren't just playing the movie as much, like we were expanding the movie with new characters and new activities and things that are happening within the syndicates. Lord of the Rings is very very spelled out for us, right? The movies tell us what the story is, and you are literally playing the movie. So yeah, it's a different kind of creativity. Now, when you're making something from scratch, I mean, that's the most fun, in my opinion, because it's just you're only limited by your imagination. and technology to a point. But nowadays, it's not even as much technology, right? You can pretty much anything you can imagine, you can create. I mean, I look at Callisto Protocol and the stuff that we were created in that, and I'm like, that's just a
Damn.
crazy mind. And that's great, man, to be able to translate something from a thought into something that's not on paper but in a game and a product, and have it be exactly as you pictured. Man, that's so fulfilling, right? So that level of creativity is, in to me, it's the most fun. It's also the most difficult. Starting with a blank piece of paper, it's difficult. And again, this is where experience, there's no substitute for it, right? Knowing where to start.
I was having a bit of a laugh. You mentioned the graphics going onto a PS2, and I remember someone that I know played the first Gran Turismo when it came out, and he was saying how real it was. And now he's still playing Gran Turismo 7, and he goes back and he's like, "Holy crap! I used to think that was real life, and now he's
Yeah.
playing Gran Turismo 7." And
It's
it's like,
totally true.
I'm sure you've had that with like when you started to now.
100%. I mean, every product you work on, you have a romantic memory of what it was, right? And so then you go back and you play it and you're like, "Ooh,
I remember
dang."
this
Like,
being way better. Like, what the
yeah,
hell happened?
totally. Oh, Gran Turismo is a fantastic example of that, because I mean, I remember the same thing. I remember, man, graphics are so real, so real. And now you look at it and you're like, "Oh my God, like,
What is this
what is this?"
pixelated mess on
Yeah,
my
totally. I mean, I
screen?
remember it, even some of the early games I worked on, where I was just like, man, that looks so. I remember the Godfather cinematics, and I was like, oh, this looks so good. And I look back at it
Nice.
now, and I'm just like, man, it's just it's different, right? Technology is different.
You know what is a great
What we're able
example?
to. What's that?
People watching the GTA 6 trailer and then going back to the GTA 5 trailer and going, "Oh, why did we think that was so good?" Because they've got this new graphics, and they go back to GTA 5 and
Yeah.
go, "Oh, I don't remember it looking that bad."
Well, and then people wonder why games cost $150 million to make.
Yep. Now, $1 billion later, we still have not got GTA 6.
Yeah, I mean, look, we are always trying to find ways to one up ourselves, and graphics have been the main impetus of that for a lot of companies, right? How do we make something beautiful? How do we make it better looking than a movie? And we're kind of at the point now where if we can make a game look like real life, so now what?
Something I wanted to ask, because moving on from that as well, you worked on the Simpsons game, and I would love to know, you were brought in to re-author all the cutscenes for the Simpsons game,
Yeah,
under tight restrictions from Gracie Films. How did you
oh yeah.
tackle a situation where you're essentially rebuilding key scenes under pressure while still respecting the work that's already done by a team?
Yeah, that was well, there really wasn't a ton of work that was done by the team. This was a very painful process, I'm not gonna lie. Because at the time, the Simpsons characters had never been translated into 3D. And so we had these 3D cinematics that we had made, but then you looked at them and you're like, kind of doesn't look like Bart. Kind of doesn't look like Lisa. And so Gracie was like, they agreed. They're like, yeah, it doesn't look like our characters because there are angles that you're seeing of them that you never see.
That you never, yeah.
And so Gracie went through the process of creating these look sheets for every single character. So when you're animating them, every shot, you have to have them in these exact angles. And man, that was a trial. And it was all hands on deck to do that stuff, because it really was redoing everything. Um, yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot.
Pretty sure I know like a few Simpsons games that have come out, and I'm pretty sure Hit and Run is still loved and played these days as well, like
Yeah,
including the game that you worked on as well. Kind of funny
yeah.
though. That
Well,
must have been
The
very
Simpsons never
stressful.
die, man. The
Yep.
Simpsons, like, I think I saw something where it was like it's been like 30 years or something. I mean, that's just, I have a hard time fathoming that. Like, that's crazy.
Now just say
Yeah.
it came out yesterday. It'll work
Yeah.
just.
I mean, it's the same show. I mean, it's no different. It's crazy.
Now, moving on to kind of like reflection on your career, with all the things that you've done, have you ever took a risk in the industry that kind of paid off, or maybe something that you wish you handled differently, or maybe should have took a risk on in your career?
I mean, everything's risky.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, look, I could name multiple times where I'm like, man, what if I had done something a little different? I mean, I'm glad every from my point of view, it's like career path is much like childhood, right? You got stuff that happens to you in your childhood that maybe you're like, not great. You got other things where you're like, man, that was the best. But everything you do is in effort to bring you where you are today. So you can't go back and, say you wish you did something different or feel bad about anything because, this is where you are. But yeah, I mean, look, when I left EA, we had just made Dead Space. We were halfway through Dead Space 2, and Glenn Schofield and Michael Condrey and I up and left and brought a bunch of people from us from the team to go start Sledgehammer. Absolutely a risk because we weren't jumping on to Modern Warfare 3. Like I said, we were jumping on to making a third person Uncharted killer game, which by the way was really cool. We were building it in the Crytek engine. We actually had a really cool demo in about 6 months, but that was super risky because honestly, I was super secure. I wasn't going anywhere. It was part of every project that came out of Visceral Studio. Had cut my teeth on some great things, probably had some great career growth that would have happened there. So yeah, walking away from that, absolutely risky. Um, so yeah, there was that. Leaving Call of Duty, totally. I mean that walking away from what is, for all intents and purposes, is the biggest entertainment franchise in the world. Sure, without a doubt, you have a good royalty plan and good stock, and you kind of walk away from that to do something else. Totally risky, but I think you put happiness in front of career aspirations sometimes. Even leaving Sony to go start Striking Distance Studios. I mean, again, I enjoyed my role in Ben Studio. I had made big impact since I was there. I probably had some great career growth I would have seen if I had stayed there. Um, but it's sometimes you get passionate about something, and especially as a creative, you start thinking about something and you're like, man, I just really want to do that. And I think what you have to think about is like, all right, well, how do I fail? Um, I only have myself to blame if I fail, right?
I
I'm
feel
in
like
I'm in control of my own destiny here and like what I put into it. Look, even joining Void, right? I've never it's by far the smallest team I've ever worked on. It's a little bit more of like a double A plus production and you know, I didn't know how it was going to turn out. This is the first time I've actually gone to a company where I didn't know anybody I was joining. And I had plenty of people asking me like, why are you going to work? Like, I'm not even sure who this company is. But to me, when I spoke to them, when I spoke to Sterling and Diana and Julio and the heads of the company, and I played the product, I'm like, okay, the thing I love here is, man, this game has got so much growth that's possible still. And this studio is just primed for it. And I love building things. I love building studios and building teams and growing things. At this point in my career, I was saying this to someone just the other day. At this point in my career, I take I take as much joy and pleasure from growing other people in their career and growing companies and growing products as I do as if it was mine. So even though Ready or Not, like I was not by any means the brain trust that created that game, I still take great joy in like watching what I can contribute to making that better and making the studio better and making the people better and growing the leads into directors and growing everybody, right? Bring my experience to the table in places where they have needs. So yeah, I mean, everything's a risk. Everything's a risk. But again, I put that onus on me to make sure that I mitigate that risk through the actions I take day to day, everywhere I am, whether it's on a project or on a team or, um, you know, building a house or anything, right? Everything is a risk. If you do it wrong, you're gonna fail. So I just do my best to not do it wrong, and that's it. I think I look at life as if look, I don't know if this is the only life we get, right? Who knows? Maybe I'm gonna get reincarnated as a cat or a caterpillar or who the hell knows, right? But it's the only life I remember, right? So I want to live it, right? I want to be happy and work on things that excite me, and I don't want to live
exactly.
in regret, And I feel like, there's the adage, it's like, no risk, no reward. And that's very, very true. If something is safe, you're probably you're never going to do something amazing. Um, so, take the chance, right? You live once. If
Exactly,
you,
and
if
you
you mess it up, you learn from your mistakes. You make a bad game, you'll learn about what you did wrong, and then you don't do it wrong again, right? Life is about growth.
but no, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and do this as well.
Yeah. That's like I said, it's been a pleasure. There's nothing better to me than kind of just someone forcing me to sit down and think about what I've done over the course of my career, because you don't really think about it otherwise.
Well, we're actually on the last question, and I'd love to know when you first started in the industry, how did you define success? And from then to now, is it sales? Is it feedback? Is it personal creative fulfillment? Like, how do you define success from when you first started to now?
When I first started, Man, when I first started, I don't know if I even could define success. I think it was just, I just want to go and do something that I'm passionate about. My grandfather was a commercial artist,
Oh
and
wow.
he used to always say, "Love your work." That was his expression. And he used to tell me, like, no matter what you do, like, do something in your life that you love. And if you're doing that, then you're always going to be successful, right? In some way. And I've always been a passionate artist, and I've always loved video games, and so I think when I got into the industry, it was just all about doing something that brought me pleasure. And I didn't have these career aspirations of like being a millionaire or having my own studio or anything, right? It was just like I just want to enjoy doing what I do, and I feel like that's such a gift. There are so many people out there that go to work every single day and just hate what they do. And to me, that's the greatest gift is I actually enjoy it. I mean, it's a job still, right? Everybody's got their frustrating days, but being able to wake up in the morning and know that this is a job that I enjoy and a job that I went to college to be an artist, and I still get to do that, albeit maybe not in the way that I thought I would. Yeah, man, it's a blessing, right? So I don't really think I had a definition for quote unquote success back in the day. Nowadays, my definition of success is how much fun do people have playing the games I'm working on, and what can I do every day to improve the process or improve the people working around me or help grow someone who works with me. How can I impart knowledge to someone in a way where they can dodge some of the pitfalls I've seen in my career, whether it's work life balance or a way of working or a technology that is frustrating and not fun to use. There's always something I can pass along, and I try to do that as much as I can. At the end of the day, the game industry can be a ringer, you know, and I've been through a lot of it. So I would love to think in some way I can help people dodge some of those challenges, right? Embrace the fact that this is a very special and unique opportunity that we have to work as we do. And don't forget that. Don't forget how lucky we are. But at the same time, understand that it's all still a job, right? It's not a substitute for life or a substitute for moments you might have with your kids. I mean, unfortunately, I have a 16-year-old son, Kai, and I look back and the really unfortunate thing is there are years of his life when he was very young that I don't remember a ton of. And I feel really terrible about that because I worked a lot. And as I got older, I realized that, and it's something that I make a conscious decision now to understand that he takes priority. My life takes priority. My job is great, and I love my job, and I love doing it. But I'm not going to be on my deathbed one day wishing I worked more. I'm going to be on my deathbed wishing I spent more quality time with family or traveling or living life. So, yeah, man, that's really how I define success now is like, what can I do for other people in their lives, whether it's the gaming community or people I work with? That's where I'm at, man. And I like being there. I don't have these big career aspirations. I've worked on big products. I don't have an ego about what I do. I've got nothing to prove anymore.
Enjoying life,
I'm
enjoying.
enjoying life, and I'm trying to help the people around me the best I can.
Now working at Void on a great game. I'd Ready or Not is a great title, and dealing with crazy rumors about why I got banned. But is he your only son, or do you have more kids?
Just one.
Ooh.
Just one big giant rugby playing, football playing 16-year-old. He's also probably my biggest critic when it comes to my games. He is he'll play him and he'll tell me what he doesn't like and what he does, and I love it. He's actually been part of the development of some of the games. I suited him up and he did a whole lot of mocap for Callisto Protocol.
That's
He did
really
a
cool.
ton of stuff. He did um so many of the enemies he was suited up and did mocap because he's an athlete, he's young, when he jumps off a platform and lands on a mat, it doesn't take him 5 minutes to get up and he's not sore for 3 days like I am. I love suiting up for mocap. It's one of the things I've done my whole career. But having someone youthful and agile to do a lot of that stuff was great. And man, he killed it. He really, really good. I told him that like if rugby and football doesn't pan out, get you in connection with some
Stunt,
of my stunt guy
yeah,
friends, and
stunt man.
you got a career in front of you there.
Well, I just want to say I really appreciate you going into depth with all the questions. I hope you've enjoyed them.
Have man.
We're at the end of the interview, and it's been an absolute pleasure to sit here and listen to your career and what you've done. Man, I hope you've had a good time. Thank you for
Absolutely.
taking the time to sit down and do this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. No, the pleasure's been all mine, and I really appreciate the thoughtful questions, man. You did your homework, and you did a great job. It's been really enjoyable, man. Like I said, I love walking down memory lane doing this stuff, and you've made it a lot of fun. You've asked some, like I said, some really great questions, things that I haven't been asked before about products that nobody has ever asked me about before. So you definitely you hold the unique distinction of being the only person that's ever asked me about the Simpsons game. So
Yeah, that's the LinkedIn now.
kudos.
That's go. That's awesome. Well, mate, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing more of these with you, and I'll see what I can do to get you in connection with some other folks too.
Oh, that's exciting. Very exciting.